I wouldn't move to Nashville and take the Dave Ramsey job for another 16 months. Here's an excerpt of the email I received for myself on March 3rd, 2010. Dear Jon, the book Stuff Christians Like has probably released at this point. It's March, and you might be tempted to run around like crazy, saying yes to every opportunity to speak and be interviewed and write. Or maybe there aren't any. Who knows? But in the midst of this time, I want you to remember that a few weeks ago, in March 2009, you sat outside with Jenny on the side of your house in the brown Adirondack chairs with the sun setting, and you thought to yourself, this is enough. I have a beautiful wife, a house to live in, 2 wonderful children, a job. This is enough. There's no reason to chase money or material possessions when the book comes out. I have enough. Remember that, in case you are tempted right now to think you've got to compromise your life in some sort of way to sell more copies of the book. It's just a book. It's not going to deliver you some sort of wonderful life. God has already done that. Stay brave, stay contrarian, stay Jon Acuff. In the middle of March 2010, that email showed up in my inbox. I had long forgotten it. I was in the center of a very noisy time. People were telling me to quit my job that second. Opportunities were multiplying like small, fluffy rabbits. I was deep into chase mode. And there was one word in that email that almost a year later I can't stop thinking about. It's not my misspelled version of Adirondack, no double O and a lowercase a. The word that stood out to me was enough. The whole email was pretty convicting, but that word wouldn't let me go. Enough. As in, it's enough. As in, you have enough. Don't let the dream you're chasing blind you to the life you already have. As in, success will tell you that you're enough is not enough. And it will keep you on a treadmill of your own design, but a treadmill nonetheless. That, to me, is the key to being successful at success. Instead of chasing enough, you have to define it. If you chase it, you'll never catch it. Enough is incredibly quick. Much like perfection, it seems to remain just out of reach. As soon as we sell $1 million worth of products, we'll have enough business. As soon as I hit 20,000 comments on my blog, I'll have enough to feel good about my platform. As soon as I make partner or executive or blank, I'll have enough freedom to take some time off. But we often never reach enough when we chase it. On the other hand, you are guaranteed to get to enough when you define it. You only find enough when you tell enough where to be found. Former Lakers coach Pat Riley touched on the problem of enough in his book, Showtime. He called it the disease of more and asserted, success is often the first step toward disaster. NBA Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas elaborated on that problem in his own basketball experience. In Cameron Stooth's book, The Franchise, he says, a team wins a championship one year, and the next year, every player wants more minutes, more money, more shots, and it kills them. But it's hard not to be selfish. The art of winning is complicated by statistics, which for us becomes money. The disease of more transcends teams and is true of all of us as individuals. The first taste of success, of winning, awakens the giant of enough. And if it's not already defined, it will grow out of control. Before you get hit with that first wave of success, sit down with a piece of paper or a futureme.org email and define what your enough will look like. I am still learning this lesson. This week, I wrote myself an email that I will receive a year from now. I wrote about this book. I wrote about my faith and my family. I continue to define my enough. I hope this book is extremely successful. I hope you give it to everyone you know. I hope that it sells 100,000 copies and changes lives all over the world. But I'm not going to wait for that success to tell me the whole experience is enough. I've already defined that. Just to jump off the script for a second, I actually got a futureme.org email yesterday from me that I had sent during January when I was writing this book. And it was just encouraging me about how I was living and what I needed to be doing. And it was a moment of clarity from the past sent to the me of the future. And so this is something I love doing and will continue to do. It wasn't just something I did once with the Stuff Christians Like book. This is one of those processes for me that really helps. Don't burn out. When we talk about chasing our dreams and successfully doing more of what we love with our lives, we often throw caution to the wind. We work until we drop and shrug off rest as something people who don't have our dream do. We burn the candle at both ends. I was curious about that phrase and looked it up. My expectation was that it was penned by a poet who lived a fast, dangerous life, smoking hand-rolled cigarettes and writing on scrolls. I was right in believing it was from a poem. I was wrong about the poet. Edna St. Vincent Millay said it. Here's what she wrote. I burn my candle at both ends. It will not last the night. But ah, my foes, and oh, my friends, it gives a lovely light. When I read that, I assumed that was one of Edna's only poems, the speed and intensity of her light burning out quickly. I couldn't have been more mistaken. She actually wrote for decades. She was no one-hit wonder, but instead won the Frost Award for her lifetime contribution to American poetry. She's a legend in the poetry world. But I fear we've twisted her words. We've treated that line about burning a candle at both ends as if it's prescriptive, not descriptive. As if the best sign of real success is burning out. Burnout is a badge of honor. Exhaustion is the mark of excellence. No one sets out to kill their dream through exhaustion, but it often happens because dreams are ravenous. They will take all the time you give them. They will swallow relationships and other priorities and anything in their radius if you allow them to burn both ends of your candle. I didn't realize this had happened to me until we moved away from Atlanta. One night, a week before we moved, my wife and I were sitting outside in our Adirondack chairs. My wife asked me, who of your good friends in Atlanta will you really miss? She asked me that because she had a pretty extensive list. Lori was like her sister. Katie was down the street and vital to her. Leanne was developing into one of her best friends. For 30 minutes, she went through a great collection of heart friends she was going to miss when we moved to Nashville. I had a hard time coming up with my list. It's not that I didn't have friends. I did. I ate breakfast with a guy named Matt every other week for 4 years. I was starting to hang out with my friend Mark from our neighborhood. But to be honest with you, I didn't have many deep heart friends because I didn't invest in relationships once Stuff Christians Like took off. Prior to the success of the blog, I met regularly with a group of men I loved. I had great friendships that I actively invested in every week. Then the site blew up, and I stopped investing in friendships. Relationships take time, and if you don't feed them, they tend to die. But I was so in love with my dream of writing and so convinced that I had to burn the candle at both ends, I wasn't willing to feed my friendships. Any free time I had went to developing the blog. In the mornings, at night, on the weekends, I was writing. If my wife and kids would go out of town for the weekend, I usually wouldn't connect with anyone. I would sit at home, writing blog entries, answering emails, or growing my Twitter list. I didn't put relationships in the right place on my like versus love list. For 2.5 years I did this, until we moved to Nashville, and I realized I didn't have many people who would miss me. Burn your dream bright. Pursue it with the best of who you are. But don't confuse hustle with burnout. Hustle fills you up. Burnout empties you. Hustle renews your energy. Burnout drains it. Hustle impacts every other aspect of your life in a positive way as you learn to prioritize the things that matter. Burnout impacts every other aspect of your life in a negative way as your dream becomes the only thing that matters. Don't accept burnout as the price or definition of success. It is neither. My site might have succeeded, but I paid for it with my friendships. The land of later is a myth. I've got to put in the crazy hours at work right now so that eventually we'll be able to have the life we want for our kids. A friend told me that once. He was in the middle of a season where he was working 14-hour days. He'd get up in the dark, come home in the dark, and squeeze his family in there somewhere between coming home at 7 and collapsing into bed at 8. From the outside, it was easy to see that he was killing his family in the name of pursuing his dream job. Though it's easy to judge that person in the pages of a book or when we see it in someone else's life, the reality is that situations like that first take root from a very noble place. As moms and dads, husbands and wives, maybe even as sons and daughters, we all want to provide. We want to give everything we have to make sure our family has anything they need. That's a great desire I would never criticize, but it gets compromised when we make the mistake of believing in later. What my friend was really saying to me was, I have to work like crazy right now so my family can be better off later. The problem is that kids don't believe in later. As parents, we might think that in a few years when they're older, our kids will appreciate and maybe even understand the long hours we put into following our dreams and working, but they don't. Kids believe in right now. That's the only reality they understand. I've never heard a 13-year-old say, "My dad wasn't really around for the first 10 years of my life, but I have a really nice bike now, so it all evens out." Kids don't say that. They might not have the ability to verbally communicate what it means to be lonely as a 6-year-old, but they are when we ignore them for the sake of pursuing our dreams in order to create a better later. It's not just kids who don't believe in later. Spouses don't believe in it either. I promise you that during the first year of having the blog Stuff Christians Like blow up, my marriage didn't get better. I cocooned myself within that dream and pursued it the wrong way, shutting my wife out of the experience. I put her in the last place you want your spouse to be, on the opposite side of your dream. When she would say, "I feel like you're spending too much time on your blog," I would hear, "I want your dream to fail." I would knee-jerk respond and say things like, "This is what I was created to do. This is my purpose. Why do you hate my dream?" I am not anticipating the arrival of the Husband of the Year trophy on my doorstep anytime soon. I made her an opponent of my dream instead of a partner. And it's a surprisingly easy place to arrive when you start obsessing about your dream right now, in the hopes of a better later. I once heard comedian Louis C.K. discuss this on the Mark Maron podcast. Louis C.K.'s comedy is brilliant, but incredibly vulgar. So when I heard him talk about why dreamers sometimes get divorced, it caught me completely off guard. Here's what he said. I had seen a lot of 60 Minutes episodes where they talk about a guy like Bill Parcells or whoever, and you just look at how he's so manic and so amazing, and then they talk to his wife, and she always has this kind of smile and says, "We just know that we don't see Bill from September 1st to February 15th, and that's, you make a deal with yourself, that's okay, and I love him." And then at the end of the episode, Morley Safer says, "And they're divorced now." This isn't an if scenario. It is a win scenario. If you chase your dream the wrong way and get lost in the land of later, you will lose relationships with your kids, with your spouse, and with your friends. Cue mournful trumpet. Wah, wah. But there is a way to destroy the land of later myth, and it's actually really simple. You do the math. I learned this idea watching my friend Dwayne deal with the success metrics of being an accountant. After he heard his family working a ton of hours, he decided to scale back from being the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. guy and start working from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Although the lines got a little blurred during tax season, he held strong to keeping his true time commitment at home instead of at work. The result was fairly expensive. In his first annual review, his manager told him that they were happy with his performance except for one thing, his time management. While everyone else at the company had spent 50-plus hours of work at the office, Dwayne had averaged 40. The cost of that time difference was going to be reflected in his annual bonus. The bonus had been reduced by $2,000 to reflect Dwayne's decision to work less. Now for Dwayne, someone whose dream is accounting, $2,000 felt like an expensive penalty to pay. Had he just worked harder on his dream, he could have had $2,000 more of success. You'll get into similar situations as you get successful too. Regardless of the specifics of your dream, there will always be just a little bit more success out of reach. And if you don't do the math, you'll think you're missing out. But here's what happened when I asked Dwayne to stop and do the math. After taxes, $2,000 only translates to about $1,500. And if he had only worked 10 hours more per week for an entire year, he would have received that money. So the equation is simple. His company offered him $1,500 for 500 hours of his time, or approximately $3 per hour. So Dwayne decided that hanging out with his wife and daughter was worth $3 an hour. He decided that if someone offered to sell him 10 more hours a week with his family for only $30, he would buy it in a heartbeat. So he didn't lose $2,000. He paid $3 an hour to get to know his daughter during a period of her life that is fleeting and fast. Would you make the same decision? I hope so. Now clearly, the math in Dwayne's situation was easy. Yours might be more complicated. The opportunities more tempting. The siren's call of the land of later even louder. But the principle holds true. If we'll take the time to hit pause and consider the true cost and true gain of a little more success with our dream, we'll often be surprised at the real numbers. Don't turn your platform into a prison. When you get successful at your dream, you're going to acquire something, a platform. This is an important word that is only going to become more important as more people chase their dreams. A platform is the spot you dream from. It's your blog, your audience, your readers, your shoppers. As Godin would say, your tribe. It's already becoming increasingly difficult to get a book published without a platform, for instance. 10 years ago, no one asked you how many Twitter followers you had when you sent them your book proposal. But with so many people swimming in the same pool, it's critical to have a platform that can differentiate you from someone else. And it's not just writers who need platforms. The same principle applies to every type of dream, from writing to starting a small business. 15 years ago, if you had a website for your business, you were unique. Now, if your company doesn't have an active Twitter account, Facebook strategy, and blog plan, your platform is underdeveloped. The problem with a platform is that if you don't build it the right way, it will become a prison. And one of the best ways to prevent this from happening is to share it. I used to get jealous of people who wrote guest posts on my blog. Although my posts would normally get more comments, there was a part of me that would internally think, oh no, that person is getting popular. This is your blog. You better write something really funny or clever tomorrow, or people will leave your platform in droves. This is a silly, insecure thing to think, but it happens to the best of us, especially when you first get successful. When you start building the platform of your dream, it's easy to get greedy. It never starts out that way, but usually begins with you saying, I need to protect my dream and my brand. You make some good decisions about how you'll live your dream, what your dream will stand for, who will be part of it, etc. And those are smart things to wrestle through. But if you put your arms around your dream too tightly, you'll start to be like a little kid who says, mine, over a pile of toys. And soon, you won't have anyone to play with. Squeeze too tightly, and you choke your dream. If you're afraid to share the platform with someone else, you'll eventually be afraid to leave it at all. And that's really the definition of a prison, a place you can't leave. Not only will you become a convict of your dream, when you refuse to share it, you guarantee that your dream will begin and end with you. I want us to have multi-generation dreams, to have a legacy that is bigger than our individual lives and actions. I don't want us to have selfish me-sized dreams. I want us to have people who can dream alongside us, add their unique ideas, and grow something that is bigger than we could ever do alone. That's a need we'll all express at one point. I want to be part of something bigger than me. You can actually be part of the catalyst for that type of movement, which is simply a dream inside a community, if you'll share it, if you'll be willing to have other people in the spotlight of your dream, if you won't clutch your dream and its platform too tightly. Don't for a second interpret that as an urging to throw wide the gates of your dream and lose control of it to anyone and everyone who enters. I've gotten a lot better at sharing the platform of my blog. I've introduced other writers to publishers and tried to do my best to share my platform with writers who don't have one. But I don't accept every guest post request I get because the blog has a specific concept. It's a satire of faith that must be funny without being mean. So if someone submits a serious guest post about her cat dying and the critical lessons from the Old Testament the experience taught her, I don't post it. If someone submits a guest post about ways to get financial aid at Christian colleges, I don't post it. If someone submits a funny post that attacks a well-known minister, I don't post it. Sharing your dream doesn't mean being stupid with it. You can kill a dreams platform by doling it out too often, just as easily as you can by hoarding it. I wish there were an exact line between those two risks. But like so many other things in life, there's not. It's a balancing act. But if you're deliberate about the way you share, and you recognize your role in helping other people close the gap between their day jobs and dream jobs, you'll figure it out a lot faster than I did. The yes side of no. In the first chapter, I said that one of the benefits of not quitting your job is that you get to say no to the wrong opportunities. You get to turn down things because most, if not all, of your basic needs are taken care of by your day job. The flip side to that idea is that when you get successful, you'll have the chance to say yes to more opportunities, which is a great thing. When you get momentum, new opportunities come out of the woodwork. People start to slowly recognize your success and will give you the chance to do things you never knew were possible. But there are also ways to make a mess of your yes. I was able to dodge the yes bullet when I took my dream job at Ramsey, but only because my team leader is smarter than I am. One afternoon, my friend Chris and I started brainstorming new opportunities. I'm paid in part on commission, so my family eats well and wears tuxedos when I do speaking gigs, sell books, and secure advertising for my blog, among a few other things. Chris and I were trying to think of new ways to create some events. After reading an article about a young speaker who taught people how to be a speaker, I told Chris, why don't we hold a conference where I teach people how to publish a book? We got excited about that idea and started to throw ideas on the wall. We already have our own conference center here, so we wouldn't need to rent space. We could advertise on the radio, since Dave Ramsey is on 450 stations. We could talk about it on Twitter and my blog. The speed and momentum of this idea started to build. We put together a proposal for the head of our department and then pitched it to him. He listened to our idea, heard all the potential benefits we saw in this opportunity, and then told us to wait. He didn't kill the idea. He didn't praise the idea. He just said wait. A month later, I learned why he wanted us to wait. It was a dumb idea. I've published one book traditionally and 2 others through Dave Ramsey's company. What do I know about publishing? I don't have a long track record to teach from. At the time we pitched the idea, I had been a published author for all of 8 months. Wow, that is an extensive history. I'm like Simon, the funnier brother in the Simon & Schuster team. What for a price did I think I could offer people who are hanging their dreams on trying to get published? 8 months of experience? We were talking about putting on an 8-hour conference. That would have been an awkward 7.5 hours after I exhausted the 30 minutes of knowledge I had about publishing. Could we have done it? Probably. Could we have pulled it off? Probably. Could we have made money on it and maybe even given out some helpful information? Probably. But in saying yes to that opportunity, I would have taken a huge step toward becoming someone I didn't want to be. I don't want to be a publishing expert. I want to be published. I'm more than happy to share things I learn along the way with people, but I'm not aspiring to be an expert on the publishing industry. I'm not a great linear thinker. If we need to move 3 cars around in our driveway, it takes me 87 moves. I hate writing how-to material. I've never wanted to be a teacher and would be miserable trying to lead people through the process of publishing. And although it might look like an opportunity, maybe even a well-paid opportunity, saying yes to the wrong thing ultimately takes you one step away from doing what you really want to do. I didn't realize how important this problem was until I called my friend and mentor Mike Foster. I told him I was thinking about starting a small group for a few friends of mine called Don't Mess Up, or DMU. I had a handful of friends with blossoming writing careers, music careers, and dream jobs. After seeing countless dreamers blow it in epic ways, I wanted to start a support group that would help us all navigate success. In response, he told me, I think that's a great idea, but be careful that you don't just focus on the obvious ways to mess up. Affairs, money, booze, porn, etc. I think one of the easiest ways you can mess up is by becoming someone you didn't intend to be. And that starts with the opportunities you decide to pursue. He was right. It's incredibly easy, in the midst of some success, to say yes to the wrong things, to take small steps and big leaps away from the dream you defined in the second chapter. I promise there are dreamers out there who woke up 15 years down the road and said, how did I get here? When did I go so far off the course? The reason this happens, the reason Mike is dead on about the danger of opportunities, is that they never look like bad things at the outset. An affair, on the other hand, is bad from the get-go. You might lie to yourself about your intentions, but it's difficult to dress up an affair as anything other than what it is, infidelity. An opportunity that might not be good for you, that always looks good at first. You tell yourself things like, I'll be able to expand my dream to a new audience. This will help my dream mature and stretch. It's a great opportunity, and it's just a job. Do you hear the danger in that last sentence? It sounds a lot like what we told ourselves in the beginning of this book. It feels like we're widening the gap between our day job and our dream job. By saying yes to the wrong things, you might actually be going backward, turning your dream job into something you never intended it to become. Sure, There will be times when you have to do things you don't like to earn money to fund doing the things you love. There's no such thing as a perfect job where you just do everything you love 100% of the time. That's why it's called the dream job, not a perfect job. But be very, very careful. Saying yes to the wrong things is a slippery slope that can lead you right back to the front of this book. Don't erase all the good work you've done in the name of insignificant successes. Don't become a publishing expert if your dream is to be published. Allow your dream room to evolve, but don't let it lead you away from your core desire. Don't say yes to the wrong opportunities. How? By asking a simple question when you face new opportunities. If I say yes to this opportunity and am successful at it, what will be the long-term outcome? Let's use me as an example. If Chris and I were to create that How to Publish conference and it were successful, what would happen? We'd probably make decent money, which would be hard to say no to. And if people were happy with it, they'd tell their friends they should do it too. We'd probably be able to do more conferences, and maybe I'd get asked to speak at publishing events. Maybe I'd even get to write a book about getting published, if I was successful at it, which is the key word in that question. The outcome would be a whole lot more opportunities to speak about publishing. And therein lies the trap. The reward of getting really good at something less significant than your real dream is that you get to do it more often. That's not a reward. That's a punishment. The goal of this entire book is to lead you into doing more of what you love doing, or precisely the opposite of what will happen if you're successful at doing stuff you don't love. I'm going through that same situation right now with public speaking. I love public speaking. I enjoy it as much as writing. I consider it a big part of my dream. But I have to be extra careful about saying yes to the wrong opportunities. Because I had a little success at a few conferences, I'm getting more opportunities. If I say yes to all of them, it won't take long for me to wake up and realize I'm somebody I never dreamed of becoming, the absentee father. That's how I felt waking up in a hotel room in the Midwest alone one morning last fall. During a stretch when I was out of town 7 of 8 weekends, I got lost in the middle of my dream. I failed to ask my own question. If I say yes to this opportunity and I am successful at it, what will be the long-term outcome? The outcome of being a successful speaker, if you carry the thread out long enough, is that you get to be on the road 200 days of the year. That's not my dream. Being away from my family is so far from the core of my dream, yet it's easy to see how I could get there. I plan on becoming the best public speaker I can possibly be. I plan to work on that and hustle on that and be faithful to that part of my dream. But along the way, I plan to not say yes to the wrong opportunities. Dreaming beyond success. Ken Bradshaw is a 58-year-old big wave surfer. He rides building-sized swells all over the world, and in 1998 rode the largest wave ever surfed. It was 85 feet tall. I read an interview with him once, and a lot of the piece focused on the decisions he's made in life that fly in the face of how most people would define surfing success. He doesn't have any big-name sponsors. He doesn't enter many contests. The author of the article said Bradshaw referred to one of the biggest events in surfing as a contest about selling beachwear to landlocked dreamers in Iowa. He has made far, far less money than Kelly Slater, who is often thought of as the Michael Jordan of surfing. Reading that paragraph, it's easy to judge Bradshaw as a failure. That would be a mistake. Bradshaw isn't unsuccessful. He was wildly successful based on his own definition of success. At the end of the article, the author asks him if he has any regrets about the choices he's made. Bradshaw responds, "My life is full of